Should. Fingers crossed that no gremlins get in the way. Here we go. Give us a thumbs up, y'all, if you can hear us. I should hear the feedback from Bear any second here. That's the ticket to ride.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for reminding me.
Hey, guys, we're here with the beautiful Henna Maria coming to us from the other side of the pond in the mountains of Malaga. That sounds lovely. Isn't there a famous trail that goes through there too that pilgrims take? What's that trail called, Henna?
Oh yeah, Camino de Santiago. I just did it actually, like 10 days ago.
Oh, envious of that. That's not been on my bucket list forever. That is something I definitely want to do. Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and hit record and get this bad boy started. Here we go. I'm excited for this today. And boom, we're back for another episode of Alfacast. I'm here with Mike Winner, as always, with the extremely brilliant Dr. Bear Paul Lando, coming to us live and direct from the Smith River in the great state of Jefferson, where freedom still reigns supreme. I had the blessing of being over at the farm yesterday with Bear. We had some really fun talks. I actually got a little workout in with him too as well, which was fun. He gave me some pointers on some hip flexor issues I'm having with surfing. So, hey, it was a great hang, man.
And were you in all watching me do my kettlebell squats by any chance?
Dude, I didn't know they made 600-pound kettlebells. That was impressive. Joe Rogan, watch out. Yeah, and our
all that weight lifted by a vegetarian, I might add.
Oh snap, we already first shots fired today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know, our kettlebells aren't in the shape of monkey heads, they're in the shape of Illumined Masters heads. So we have the Buddha head, the Jesus head. For those that are familiar with Joe Rogan, they know he's got like the funny, you know, face heads of the kettlebells. I don't know if they still do that, but well, that being said, we have Henna Marie on today. Really no points of business. I want to jump right into this. If you guys are new to Alfa Vedic, go to alfavedic.com, alfavedic.com. The new site is we're very close, guys. I know you've been hearing that for almost a year. Hey, it takes a lot to put out this innovative stuff. And we're very excited about the new membership platform. You'll be able to go in and message Bear directly, and myself and our crew. And also, I think more importantly, is be able to connect yourselves in a secure private platform and create community online so that we can come together in person. Very exciting. Also, it was cool, Bear, to see the new structure up there at Alfa Vedic Gardens. Shout out to Mark Guyver for all the beautiful work he's done. And of course, to our lovely Shannon, who is there packing boxes probably as we speak. We love you guys. And please, if you want to support Alfa Vedic, go to alfavedic.com and buy some of our products. It's Christmas time, beautiful gifts for your friends and family. There is even a way to buy it internationally with a certain service that people have been pretty happy with since we don't offer international shipping. And you can also join us on Telegram at t.me/Alfa Vedic. And yeah, that's about all I got. Anything on your end, Bear, before we bring Henna in?
No, I'm as you saw yesterday, I'm coming to you from my new made-over war room here, and I think I detected a little techno envy from you yesterday when you saw my new technology. But what I'm doing is I'm clearing out and making over my room, and I'm going to put out my treatment table and a lot of other goodies from my old trade that I haven't had at this location for a long time, because we're going to be doing a lot of videoing in here for little workshops on how to do things to the body for practitioners and lay people alike. So we're getting that all ready, and that'll be part of our new website.
I love it. Yeah, a little envy, you have an amazing rack system with all your tech there. And I know you're transmuting that on the regular with your biogeometry. So we do it all here. That's the thing about Alfa Vedic, is that we don't live in fear. We touch all the subjects. We stick with the moral high ground in terms of universal law, natural law, understanding hermetics, understanding how the best we can, how the realm functions. And we go there. And today we're going there. And I'm very excited about this talk because I think it's going to be a deep mirror look into ourselves and what we're doing right now as conscious I don't know, protectors of the realm, if you will. So that being said, let's get into it. I'm very excited about this one, Bear, because it's going to trigger a lot of folks, and that can be a very good thing. Triggers are good. I was just talking about somatics with Paula Pratt and Sophie Fletcher, who are amazing somatics practitioners. And I think it's an important time right now in the world that we understand that triggers are something that can really awaken us to deeper truth and deeper learning about ourselves. So as you're listening today, if you find that you're getting triggered, maybe hit pause, do some, if you're not familiar with somatics, it's a way that you can recognize your trigger and process it through your body, and then hit play again, because this is going to be, I think, a challenging subject for some people, and that's a good thing. Okay, guys? Okay, without further ado, let's just pop into this. Today, international human and animal rights activist Henna Maria rejoins Alfacast to discuss how we may better honor the essence and purpose of the creature class within our realm. Henna Maria returns to further explore the practice of Carnism and its origins. Some suspect veganism to be a trending ploy to purposely weaken our bodies and vitality, but is animal protein actually necessary? Such discussions are perhaps the most triggering of all subjects, regardless of which side of the culinary fence you reside. But your Alfacast hosts never shy from a provocative conversation. Activist and medicine woman Henna Maria will expose the insidious ways in which animals continue to be desouled in our collective psychology. The debate of dietary choices is left hollow at its core when it lacks the comprehension of the spiritual consequences of enslaving and eating animals. Henna will shed light on the contracts imposed on humanity and the conditions that are inflicted on our collective reality through this violent practice. Henna Maria grew up in a tiny town in a Finnish forest, but her calling to explore the world led to an adventurous path of self-discovery and activism beginning at the age 16. Henna Maria's early travels ranged from helping the homeless in San Francisco to her work with Amnesty International and university studies in translation science and psychology that eventuated as a simultaneous interpreter in UN peacekeeper trainings. Quote, "Is it love to remain silent and watch the world burn?" In Henna Maria's own words, as an interpreter, one has no voice. And I had a message of my own to share. So in 2011, I started to find my true voice, and the spiritual dimension of life began to reveal itself to me. My search to comprehend the inner and outer landscapes of life eventually took me to the cradle of indigenous wisdom, the Amazon rainforest. Together with her husband, she moved to Peru and immersed in 5 years of learning ancestral healing arts with the Shipibo tribe, specializing in the art of Ikaros, songs of prayer and healing. In 2019, Henna Maria founded Dawn of Peace, bringing together her love for activism and spirituality, and began forming a collective of peacemakers with the capacity to address a diversity of world issues from a holistic and compassionate perspective. Our mission is to teach people about the spiritual reality of life, human and animal rights, medical freedom, and self-sovereignty. In response to a rising trend in government totalitarianism, Henna Maria co-founded the International Police for Freedom movement, educating police and civilians about our natural rights in order to build unity and rehumanize our societies. Henna Maria states, "As a true lover of humanity, my heart rejoices at the sight of golden threads of human connection being weaved across the world right now. Through excruciating pain, we are finding our sacred boundaries again. We are remembering our purpose and our place in this creation. It is with great honor and gratitude that I carry the medicine of the ancients and continue to walk the path of service." And that quote basically is our motto as well, Bear, huh?
Absolutely. Henna, it's so amazing to have you again today. And as I said, when we were chatting before, it's been way too long. I remain in awe of everything you've accomplished, the space that you're holding for all of us, and just always great to see your shining face. I know today we're going to go a little bit more in depth into the animal rights issue, and it is very triggering. And I know we're also, all of us, wanting to delve deeper into the spiritual implications of, how we treat animals, including consuming them for our food source. This will definitely bring the trolls out. I'm definitely also going to be ignoring the chat here at YouTube because I'll get triggered by the trolls. So, I don't know why it's such an well, actually, I take that back. I do know why it triggers us so much, because, food is, really associated with our deepest survival issues. And a lot of folks, as I wrote up that little newsletter yesterday, a lot of folks are convinced that it is a kind of a ploy to, take the meat away from people in order to make them weaker and demasculate, the men folk and everything. I look at things a little bit differently in that I have seen many trends come and go over my days in the health industry, and including vegetarianism, veganism. Now we're on the paleo thing, and I think the paleo thing is actually one of those things. That is, well, it's selling a lot of products for a lot of people, that's for sure. But I think the whole new trend, there's something going a lot deeper with that. And I know this is a little bit more superficial compared to where we want to go today with this topic, but I think it's worth talking about a bit to get started. I've seen a lot of folks that go full on paleo because in their maybe vegan or vegetarian days, they did not really know how to eat a balanced diet and to get the right kinds of foods. So they suffered from that. Also, they maybe transitioned a little too quickly and didn't give their enzyme systems and body a time to transition, but mostly transition on an emotional level, because food is a very emotional event for all of us. And so I see people that have gone paleo, meaning, just predominantly meat eating. And it is a tonic, in the old days up in the mountains in China, the martial artists were all vegetarians and they were like total badasses, could kick the crap out of anybody. On the other hand, they had fish ponds. And if somebody was sick, sometimes they went to the tonifying effects of fish, but temporarily just as a tonic to, to achieve certain things. And then they go back to their normal diets. But, meat eating was not condoned by these, very spiritually and physically adept people. And in my practice also, I saw people that would go on the almost 100%, meat diet. They'd feel good for a while, but then it would always catch up and then they'd have health problems of a different type and then have to go back in the other direction. So, as a practitioner, you see many, many people come and go, and you get to see in real time over a large, canvas of the population, what really works, what doesn't. Here's the final thing I want to say. Meat eating, it can be a tonic, and it also is a resonance. So you can get a temporary effect of feeling better that can compensate for maybe some of your imbalances. But on a resonance level, it's very dense. And it also incorporates, the fear and everything that's produced in the animals as they're raised for slaughter, because they know what the heck's going on even before the slaughter. So now when we consume that, it lowers the ceiling on our own consciousness as far as our perceptive bandwidth. And our perceptive bandwidth, in other words, the raising of our consciousness, is what will produce long-term health effects in the body. So people mistake these short-term tonifying effects for health, when in fact they're shooting themselves in the foot by dampening those perceptive bandwidths and lowering their consciousness, which is the only thing that animates our body or keeps it going in the first place. So it's kind of ironic. And I think we're really looking at it short-sighted. But, welcome. Thanks for being with us. And maybe if we can just start a little bit from the food angle, but then go into the deeper ramifications that you're better equipped to talk about.
Thank you so much for inviting me on, Bar and Mike. And yeah, I do appreciate starting from the kind of maybe the base level, seeing animals as food. But where we will go today is I will talk about how actually they're not food. They're other beings that we share this realm with, and that are our teachers and brothers and sisters. But yeah, the way we've been brought up and in our modern culture, we do perceive them as a dietary choice, as whether there's a carrot or a potato or bread or gluten or animal or red meat or white meat. So it's kind of all mixed into this food pyramid. So we perceive them as a choice of food like anything else. I guess something really important to think about is that where we are now is we're basically zoo beings. We're not wild humans living off the land anymore. And our perception of that wild human being is colored and distorted through the history that we've been fed, right? So we have an idea of what that free roaming nature being, human being would be like. And in all those stories, we imagine a hunter. We speak of hunters and gatherers. But I would question that as the base assumption. That what if that is actually not true? What if that is just the most recent part of history that we've adopted as the origin of humanity? What if actually we grew in reciprocal, symbiotic relationship with animals, and it's only through the fall of consciousness, the fall of man, that violence became a part of our fabric? Perhaps that never was the case. Maybe we were never designed to be this way. So when we start talking about how we eat, how we behave, what is human, what is natural, I would like to just kind of try and clear the canvas and kind of ask people to say, or ask people to ponder that how much do I actually know of the being that I've been designed to be? How much I have these filters and layers and beliefs there that are, distorting perhaps the stories that I carry in myself about who I am. But one of those kind of very common misconceptions is that Native Americans would have been meat eaters. But this is only in the recent history of when they were driven out of their gardens into the rocky terrains where nothing grew. But they were originally gardeners. And there's a great article about that people can check out called Native Americans and Vegetarianism, which talks about the Cherokees, how they were actually vegetarians. And I can read the quote here. A French manuscript of the 18th century describes the Choctaws' vegetarian leanings in shelter and food. The homes were constructed not of skins, but of wood, mud, bark, and cane. The principal food, eaten daily from earthen pots, was a vegetarian stew containing corn, pumpkin, and beans. The bread was made from corn and acorns. Other common favorites were roasted corn and corn porridge. The ancient Choctaws were first and foremost farmers. Even the clothing was plant-based, artistically embroidered dresses for the women and cotton breeches for the men. Choctaws never adorned their hair with feathers, even. So just to put a little seed there, like, all right, well, maybe the image that I have of the origin of humanity and the way humans should be in the wild is not exactly correct. And there's many different tribes, in the Andes, the Incas, that, were marvelous performers in athletics, and they just ate chia seeds and quinoa, so we have a lot of perceptions on what is strength, what is resilience, what is masculinity through the very modern lens that we carry. It's just this modern narrative of humanity. Regarding the health effects, again, we have to examine our bodies. Like, we are the product of the full world, right? So we are born into a polluted world. We are injected with foreign matter, metals, chemicals, aborted human fetus cells from our very first months of our lives. So when you look at our biology and the symptomology that we suffer with, it can be actually quite tricky to establish the baseline. of where the health is if it's already so tainted with all these unnatural, artificial influences in us. So when you think of, okay, someone's gone vegan and they're now unwell, you mentioned, Barry, about the detoxification and transitioning period, which is a very real thing because you're changing your fuel. So you need to first and foremost hydrate a lot more because you have so much more fiber in your system when you go plant-based. And dehydration symptoms can be a huge part of the symptomology that arise when people transition into a vegan diet. But then aside from that, there's also how well are your organs functioning to begin with? How well are you able to absorb the nutrients from the food? You know, how is your detoxification system functioning? So if you already compromised from a young age, because we live this zoo life, you know, we don't get the exercise we need. We eat foods that are toxic. We get injected with all this weird stuff and pumped with pharmaceuticals. Then is it any wonder that if we return to a diet that was the way I've come to see and learn designed for a human being, which is plants, that there's some sort of malfunction or dysfunction because our organism isn't working the way that it should be. So when you hear those stories of, oh, someone went vegan and their health collapsed, you know, okay, what else was happening? You know, it's not so simple. And same with the paleo thing. Someone went paleo, okay, what else was happening? Maybe they eliminated a lot of the toxins and the junk food from their diet. So we need to be aware of that. What are all these different ingredients that are affecting our health? And then, of course, the psycho-spiritual elements of food. If we are craving life force, then perhaps the way that we can fill that void is taking it from another being. And it's basically a stealing of another being's prana in a kind of roundabout way. So what can we do to be able to generate this life force within us? And maybe that is a hard journey, and maybe it is a painful journey. And perhaps some people's bodies have been compromised in a way where it's no longer possible. And this is where it's morally now a big question. You know, why do we eat meat? Is it as a medicine because our bodies are so fundamentally injured that we cannot simply survive with plants as we're supposed to? You know, then that brings a whole other question to the, you know, equation. If it is literally the only thing you can eat, then that is the principle of self-defense, which we have. It's our sacred right. We all have the right to, you know, do what is necessary for our bodies to survive. But if it's not for that purpose and we are capable of eating plants, then here's where my story begins. Then why would you eat? Why would you eat animals if you can live and thrive with plants?
You're muted, Bear.
No, I was just saying, excellent question. I'd like to hear your whole take on it.
Yeah. You know, my maybe I should start why I changed my way of living, because it's not just a diet, you know, it's a whole worldview. And just to give people the background that I'm not sitting on some sort of a high horse, because a lot of people think immediately that, oh, you're judging everybody. And what you were saying, Barry, that you earlier before we started recording, that you're interested in how things function and how to solve things, like on a very practical level. So this is at the core of my activism and my work also in the healing arts, is understanding the sickness and then what is the remedy and how to apply that. And I'm interested in like the core malady in humanity. What is causing that? What is the spiritual sickness at the core of it? And I see Carnism as being the first spell, the first curse put on humanity. And we can go deeper into that. But so I didn't know any of this. I was oblivious to the spiritual consequences of eating animals, to myself and to the whole, to humanity, to creation. I'm born into the zoo, and this is how I create my idea of normality and what is natural. I'm living in this artificial environment, and this is how I learn right and wrong from my parents, from my culture. So I have no reference and any deeper reference. And so I take it as the norm. Of course, you eat animals. While I also claim to love them, and while I have had animal companions and lived alongside them and pet them, and would go at great lengths to making sure that they're fine. So genuinely caring about animals. But then there's this massive disconnect. So how is that born? We can talk about that later. And I was already an activist, working for human rights. And then I come across this man. It was one fated night in London in a bus stop in Trafalgar Square. I was visiting my cousin there. And there's this Occupy London activist stood next to me. This is like 3 a.m. And he says to me, "Hey, do you realize we're wearing the same exact outfit?" And I look, and literally we were like, he was the male version of what I was wearing, a secondhand army jacket and black jeans and shoes. And he was doing the same exact thing. He was also blonde. So he was like the male version of me, the weirdest thing. And he started talking to me. So totally a random synchronistic coincidence type scenario. And he tells me about his activism, that he's actually, living in this bank that is empty, that they've occupied, and they're turning it into a free school. Brilliant guy, So I'm captivated by his energy and his visionary, approach to life. And he's asking me, well, what's your thing? Not caring at all about occupations or where I'm from, or just like, what do you drive for? What is your passion in life? And I'm like, well, peace and love, basically. I'm an activist too for human rights. And then he's like, oh, okay, well, what about animals? Are you vegan too? And it was just this question that nobody had ever asked me. And I was kind of caught off guard. And he's like, well, why not? And I didn't have a response. I literally did not have a response. I honestly had never thought about that topic, as crazy as it sounds. As an activist, working for freedom, human rights, equality, peace, never, ever considered animals. Until this guy asked me this question very bluntly, but without any judgment. And then he goes on to explaining to me some of the practices that take place in slaughterhouses and how animals are exploited and how there's certain techniques they do to make the meat more addictive, like slaughtering cows in a way where they actually look at each other in the eyes. So when one's throat is slit, the other one gets filled with adrenaline. And then that adrenaline is in the meat. And then when you eat it, you get hooked. So all these things that he was sharing to me, and I just immediately felt like, oh my God, I've been deceived. And I started realizing that it's not out of my own choice that I live the way that I do, that I've somehow been indoctrinated into a belief system where the lives of animals don't matter. And so this was a beginning of this gigantic cog that started turning in my consciousness, and my life was forever changed just from this one conversation. So I guess my intention and my wish and my hope for today, that this conversation we're having could be that spark, that little seed, that little inspiration for someone out there who is watching this, just to reconsider, who are animals to me? Do their lives matter to me? What is my relationship to them? Why do I eat them?
On a creation level, the primary multiplication of forms from consciousness from our creator comes from when we differentiate between 7 basic rays, we'll say, color qualifications, and then those step down through the ethers and precipitate all life and all matter on all levels, including the 4 kingdoms within this realm, being first the mineral, then the plant, and then the animal, and then the human kingdom. And when you understand the mechanics of that, which is where I like to go, you see that each of the 4 kingdoms exemplifies, is a combination of all the 7 rays, but it in particular exemplifies either 2 or 3 of these rays. And the animal kingdom, which is right before the kingdom of mankind, has two rays, the third ray of active intelligence and the sixth ray of devotion. Now they have those two rays because they're the embodiment of the creator's intelligence in a life form. And then they also have that ray of devotion that is really meant to connect them with us. The animal kingdom is very devoted to us. And also they are the individualizations of consciousness, just a step down from us. And, maybe even embarking on an individualization on a higher level like ourselves. But there's this special bond, between human and animal. So when you start to see that and how these animals are here for us in a certain way, and then also like in the Ascended Master teachings, they talk about how the domestication of animals was to bring certain species of animals closer into the realm of humans. And through that, allow humans to love them into a different state of being, into a higher realm. And there's also stories within those circles that at one time in our distant past, when we were much closer to our powers of instant precipitation before the fall, so-called, but then we started descending into expressing ourselves from lower emotional states, but we're still in those, those powers of instant precipitation. We started precipitating animal forms that were the embodiment of our lower emotions. And I don't know if this is anything you subscribe to, but it makes a lot of sense to me. But then bringing us back full circle to right now, it's our responsibility to free these animal forms from, embodying, what we did way long ago, and in the process, free them and also free ourselves and what we created. Not that animals were lower forms in a negative sense. They were just mirroring to us some of the, traits that we started portraying instead of, coming from a higher level of consciousness. So I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but I think there's, absolutely a stronger, or let's just say a closer bond with ourselves, the animal kingdom, that we can possibly appreciate.
Yes, I totally resonate with that notion of the killing in the animal kingdom being actually caused by our fall in consciousness, and that in the original garden, or the Garden of Eden, or the paradise, the wolf and the lamb, the lion and the lamb would be, they would be companions. There would be no predators or preys. And I published a presentation about 10 days ago or something, where I go into this question a lot, called Animals Are Kin. Maybe it can be linked in the show notes for people to watch. But about 45 minutes of it, I am actually just exploring that question of who are they? What are their qualities? What kind of consciousness do they embody? And I absolutely see this, that they are here for us, and we are also here for them. So we can co-evolve, right? And in the Native American shamanic traditions, they talk about animals carrying medicine. So you have, the eagle medicine, the bear medicine. And what does that mean? The way I see it is that they're expressing and embodying a certain divine quality that we have the capacity to also express. And by tuning into them and their life and their form and their behavior and their gifts, their skills, then it's almost like a mirror for us to see whether we actually have those skills developed in us, or those aspects developed in us. So imagine a human being as the ultimate combination and accumulation of all the different animal medicines. This is the way I see it, like the ultimate guardian and steward and protector of the creation. Also having all those qualities, from the mineral to the plant to the animal kingdom and to the nature spirits within us. So it's not that they are here for us to be our property, but to be like, other beings that in a mystical, unspoken way express a divine sacred quality. And because, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, from that ray perspective, mankind, the fourth kingdom of the creator, is the embodiment of all of the other ray attributes of the other three kingdoms. So we are meant to be responsible, empathetic caretakers.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I do think that this is rising in our consciousness and in our blood, in our DNA, this memory of who we are, who we're meant to be. And this is why there are such aspirations now for people to develop spiritually. And this is one of the reasons why I want to talk about animals and eating animals, because what I perceive is that there is such an urgent desire for us to ascend or spiritually evolve, that we like to take shortcuts, and we like to achieve that image of the enlightened Buddha, sitting in a lotus position under the Bodhi tree in perfect equilibrium with creation, without the work that it took to get there. And so how can we get there if we think that all that we have is basically this artificial zoo environment and we've pretty much lost the original knowledge? Well, thankfully, we have some little pieces of evidence that have been left behind by our elders, by our ancestors in sacred scripture, in cultures that are still indigenous. And for me, when I talk about indigenous, I like to go into the deeper root of this word, indigenous, born within. So when you live from within, inside out, the knowledge comes from this inner well and is expressed through you and shared into the creation outside of you, into the external world. Whereas we are exogenous. We accumulate things, the modern man, from the outside and take it in and try and, in this way, embody the knowledge. So we are all indigenous, of course. Originally, we are indigenous to the land where we come from. But there are still tribes that are indigenous in the true sense of the word, that they don't read, they don't write. They have this source open in them. They have this infinite well, this fountain of wisdom that is just present in their bodies, in their beings. And I know this because I've lived alongside some of these incredible people that are, to me, a mirror of what a human being can be. Not to say that all indigenous people and all tribes are pure. There's a lot of corruption and war and violence there also. But there are still examples of that organic spiritual wisdom that we can generate without reading a single book, without watching a single YouTube video. And so how do we, from the scriptures, from communing with this kind of individuals, from taking medicines from the earth that are like keys of the creation to take us back home, how do we, with their help, begin to see reality with clarity instead of through these distortions that have been placed in our minds? And one of them is Carnism.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about consciousness here, right? And really being honest with ourselves and really coming to a higher understanding of what it means to be human and what it means to be here right now. And I think, it's important to understand basic principles. I always love going to basic principles. So, natural law, we talk a lot about what does that mean? You have the 7 principles of the Hermetic laws, right? And those are very great to know because it allows us to be easier on ourselves and understanding that everything is, through the law of polarity, for instance, there is nothing black and white. Everybody's on a different level of the scale. And so, and also due to the principle of vibration, everybody's in a different vibratory state. Nothing is stable. Nothing is here where we're stuck. So that being said, everybody has a chance to evolve. That's why we're here, right? So I think the point is that we all need to be compassionate about where we're at and understanding that if we go into a purity spiral on this topic, you can just keep going to where literally even breathing is eating a microorganism and you're killing a consciousness, right? So I think it's important for us to understand that in order to really embrace the moral nature of this, we have to understand that nothing is like everything is in flux. Nothing is permanent. We have the ability to constantly come back and change and evolve. So that's what we're talking about in terms of our relationship with plants, with animals, with the air, with the water, and having that compassion and that honesty so that we can sort of make the right decisions for us right now, but understanding that we have an infinite amount of time to evolve towards this, but we also have a responsibility right now to do what's moral and right for where we stand. And so I think it's important not to purity spiral off on this, but I think it's also important to be as honest as we can about ourselves where we are right now. And I do agree. I know the animal kingdom is a reflection of where we are in consciousness. That's why it's here. And that our emotions literally create the animals that exist on this planet. So when we pass away, our emotions that we have created over the time of our lifespan actually go into the form realm and create the animals that are on the planet. That's how I see it. And so when we live in a realm of war and mistrust and animosity, we have an animal kingdom that reflects that. And so it's our duty to evolve. And so that animal kingdom can thus evolve as well and represent to us in physical form the beauty of consciousness and where consciousness can go. So when we're eating and destroying these animals, we're destroying ourselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I love to take it as well. Talking about how things function, understanding the Hermetic principles and the law of correspondence. So whatever we do to ourselves is actually what will be done to others also, and vice versa. So what we do to others will be done to us.
Yes. And that's why animals eat other animals right now, because we're literally eating them. It's a circular cause and effect. Everything else, that's another principle, cause and effect, right? So literally to get out of this vicious cycle, it is up to us as the doer with the rightness, with the conscious, we're conscious, but also we have our conscience, right? That is coming from the divine knower. We know deep down inside what is right and wrong. We don't need to read a book for that. We don't need a teacher for that. We know we have that power inside us. And that comes down to honesty, but also comes down to understanding where you're at right now. So it's a powerful spiritual journey. Go ahead, Bear.
I was just going to add that another great attribute of animals is they mirror back to us exactly where we are at. And, I live in an area where we're way out in the middle of nowhere, and there's more creatures than there are people by a long shot. And there are a lot of big animals. There's a lot of lions. We hear them, we see them. There's bears that are just, kind of walking by all the time. Sometimes I'll need to get out to my truck and there's a bear sitting there, so I have to have a conversation with it. And, they really respect when you are comfortable with them and are not afraid of them. And then, there's a great rapport with that, and we all subsist together very peacefully because of that. And everybody leaves everybody alone. Now, we also have a regular flux of visitors here on the farm, and they know also that there are these creatures here, but most people that come from the city environment are very much in fear of them. And so much so that, even sleeping in our guest house, one individual was afraid to even sleep by the window because they knew a bear frequently, walked around the deck outside and looked into windows, and so it's just, I think, being comfortable with ourselves, all of those nature, attributes that animals embody that are part of us. But it is a great reflection. And of course, it always goes back to, I think, our one biggest, downfall is just disconnecting ourselves from nature in the first place. And I really love what you said about indigenous, because that has been so misused in our culture to romanticize certain cultures just because they happen to have been born in a certain area or within a certain, racial group. And then at the same time, demean those of us that may be embodied in a different culture at a different time, when in fact we're all indigenous, exactly like you say. And I think you just put it beautifully. So that was wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. That I think this is part of that devaluation program that we have here in the West, always
Right.
thinking that someone else has the answer, and yeah, looking up to saviors, and not to say that there aren't them, you know, that's a whole nother conversation about Christ and everything. But yes, to know that we all have the capacity to evolve, or perhaps maybe even just to return to our true origin. For me, I've started thinking about it in this way because I feel that if I think that there's some thing that I need to evolve into, that it's almost unattainable in some way, I can't quite reach it. I'm not really sure what it is because I need to go to a new place. Whereas if I think of it as I need to return to my true self, my original being, my original soul, it feels more safe. It feels more attainable. It feels familiar because I was already there, you know? So it's like, all I need to know is just find my way back home. And this reality is a wonderful compass and a map constantly reflecting to us where we are morally. And this is why we have these laws in creation, right? Their purpose is to direct and straighten us by giving us the reflection of what we've done. So it's a loving creation, right? And so the cause and effect and law of correspondence ensure that we have to learn from what we do. And so if we hold these beliefs that Carnism is one of, that we can dominate, you know, then we, by that same token, we accept the condition of domination in this creation because we make the laws. You know, on one hand, there are these universal laws that are in place, but on another hand, we are also creator beings. You know, we've been made in the image of the creator. So it means we are constantly creating the conditions of this reality. You know, what are our conditions for being here? And so if we enslave beings that we perceive to be lower than us, then we accept the condition of slavery on this earth. We accept the condition that being that perceives them to be higher than us can enslave us by that same token. Everything's a mirror. Everything is a two-way thing. If we think we can hold this animal on a leash, then another being thinks they can hold us on a leash, you know, whether it's metaphorically or physically. If we think we can devour these babies, lamb or piglets or, you know, little chicks, then there are other beings that think that they can devour our young, which they are doing. And this is why I think this conversation is so very important in this community, like with your people in the Alfa Vedic community. It's because we are all aspiring to create the condition of freedom on earth, aren't we? Isn't this like one of the fundamental reasons why we're here together, why we are creating community? Because we want freedom on earth. How can we ever do that if we are unconsciously creating the condition of slavery over and over and over again, because we are practicing these things? We are enslaving, exploiting, you know, paying for other people to rape other animals. You know, we don't need to go into the practices that happen in slaughterhouses, but I do invite everyone to do that research on their own, because it's not an opinion, it's not a theory, it's fact. And if there is a reason that you don't want to know about it, then you need to ask yourself why. Why don't you know what happens in slaughterhouses?
I was when I was playing college football, you know, you sometimes take on a summer job, and one of our alumni offered me a job working in a local slaughterhouse that he owned. I spent one afternoon there and then never went back. And, you know, keep in mind, I'm a 280-pound football player back then, you know, not a raw food vegan that I would later become in my adult life. And it was so appalling to me. It just changed me forever. You know, I still ended up consuming a lot of chickens from that point on, but I never ate red meat again after that day. It was so disturbing to me. So I think, yeah, that's a good idea. Go see, you know, how that nice, you know, pink flink, shrink wrap piece of flesh in your grocery store shelf gets there, and, you know, what price animals had to pay for that. You know, there's a great little story in the first book of the Saint Germain series, which is something, we were talking about earlier, that I've been around for a long time with the originators of that whole school of thought, and it isn't a new agey thing. And when you're in those original groups, as we were many decades ago, you see a lot of validation and proof of everything they say in those books. But this one story is wonderful, and that Guy Ballard is hiking on Shasta and then comes across a gentleman, and we won't go into all the names and everything, but that's interesting too. And but anyway, he encounters a panther, and he had an initial moment of fear, but then contained himself. And then the panther just simply came up once the fear was contained, and just, he started scratching the panther's head. And then Saint Germain appeared to him. And but through the whole course of the story there, Saint Germain explained how that panther, because of the association of that love and absence of fear from Guy Ballard, was able to free that animal forever. And Saint Germain said, well, the panther will never hunt deer again, and will simply be freed from his form forevermore. So, wonderful story. And also in those teachings, Saint Germain very explicitly says that, someday very soon, mankind will look upon the habit of meat eating as we now look upon cannibalism. And I really feel very strongly that there's no difference.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've thought about that question a lot. What is the origin of this spell? And Carnism, how I define it, is it's a belief system according to which violence to animals is justified by the pleasure that it gives us. So this is how I define Carnism as a philosophy. That it comes from the time that Enoch describes in maybe I should read the quote. It's in my other presentation as well, but this to me resonates as the origin. This is Enoch 7 from Book of Enoch. And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one, and they began to go in unto them and to defile themselves with them. So this is talking about when the fallen angels came down to earth and took human wives. And so then he goes on to talk about the human wives, and they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, also known as Nephilim, whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. So when I think of the law, the eternal law, natural law, thou shalt not kill, love one another. This in scripture describes an event when the devouring of other beings began through a spiritual crime of, defiling human nature with this fallen spiritual being. So we can go into this for hours and hours and hours and go into all the different counts and scriptures and where did we come from? What are we? But to me, just this describes so well that it's called sinning against birds, beasts, reptiles, fish. So when we are taking their bodies and devouring them in this context, this is what I would call the origin of Carnism. And I have some slides if you guys wanted to see, just to go deeper into the modern, kind of the way that we de-soul animals in our collective psychology these days.
I think it's important for people to realize too that thoughts and our past lives affect us now. So our thoughts from thousands of years ago, from the fall, are still affecting us now. And if we haven't done the work over previous lives, this is my opinion, but I've got this through lots of research, through really foundational books of researchers and people who have, gone out of body, near-death experiences, et cetera, and just using really, foundational a priori wisdom and knowledge, is understanding that if we have been in this dense material world for thousands of lifetimes, it's going to be difficult for someone to go vegan, essentially, if they're in a certain path towards their thoughts. So if so I think we need to understand everybody's different depending on what your lifespans have done. So this is an evolving thing that Henna is trying to get at, that she's not judging or casting stones if you eat meat. I eat meat right now. I'm not there yet, and I don't judge myself for it. I try to be as humane as possible. We mostly eat chicken eggs. We have our own chickens. I think actually chicken eggs are a great protein to get because it's it's a hen that's laying an egg that isn't fertilized. It's just going to be there anyways. There's lots of ways to go about this, but I eat meat and I'm not judging myself as a sinner. I'm understanding that where I am in my path towards my consciousness is where I'm at right now. And I'm doing everything to evolve towards a higher ability to eventually become a breatharian or whatever. So I just wanted to stress that in the chat. There's no judgment here. There's no casting stones. It's about Henna speaking her truth. And I think these are very, very important concepts about what it means to be consciousness. And that no, humans are not animals. We aren't animals. We are divine consciousness. We have a role to play, and animals are a reflection of that. So I just wanted to stress that again. Go ahead, Henna.
Yeah, absolutely. There is no judgment. It's just understanding of what are we creating. So the laws
I do have some strong feelings about Michael's lifestyle choices, though.
Yeah, he berates me and continually. He actually comes over and flogs me once a week every time I eat a piece of chicken. But we're getting there. We're getting there. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Hey, I went from, again, 280 pound football player to raw food vegan and everything in between. So I have no judgment about anything. And then also playing doctor for a long time. I learned the art of meeting people where they're at, and you don't berate people. You don't try to bring them into a state of being that they aren't there yet. And it wouldn't work out well physically for them anyway. So no, I agree with everything Michael's saying. And
we will have Devon, the Black Airbender, who's amazing. He is a breatharian, and he will be on the show. We're booking him right now. If you're familiar with Devon, I don't know if you know him, Henna, but that's the whole other spectrum we're going to get into, right? So not even eating vegetables or fruit or anything. So anyways, remember, guys, let's get out of the gross materialism. People are asking here, I want scientific facts. I want to know what I haven't seen any actual grammar or logic yet for your rhetoric. Hey, that's a great critic. If that's a critical response right now, and I told him to go watch a Joe Rogan podcast, that wasn't a slight. I'm not, knocking you, bro. I'm just saying that we are going into the philosophical, basis for these concepts. And when you start to go, and I want to know the facts about this, what are you saying? That's gross materialism. That's chemistry. That's the after effects. We're taking this from a more philosophical, spiritual perspective. Go ahead,
yes.
Henna.
Which is the thing that is always missing. What frustrates me, as having been an animal rights activist for 10 years, almost 11 now, is that it always goes into a debate. And it's sad for me because it's not about me or you, it's about the animals. This is why I'm here talking, is because they are another being, I don't care if you choose to eat carrots or potatoes. That has no reference, it has no meaning for me. But when it's another being that is carrying an individuated spark of consciousness, that has an individual soul that wants to live, that I'm sure all of us naturally feel love and affinity to when we encounter an animal in the wild, then my question is, why don't we live according to that? What happens to us? So I'm not trying to blame anyone. I'm trying to say, look, we have all been put under a spell of Carnism, and it has ancient spiritual roots, and it's to do with very, very dark practices of animal murders, ritual murders, which are called sacrifices. But actually it's not sacrifice, because you don't own the animal, so you can't sacrifice anything that isn't yours. Animals don't belong to us. They're a being of their own right. So you can't ever sacrifice an animal. It's always a murder. You're always taking a life that isn't yours. So it's a bit like the abortion question. Oh, I have the right to my body. Yes, but you don't have the right to the body that's inside your body. that's another being. So we have to be, very clear with ourselves. What are we talking about? And I'm talking about animals as a creation. That is not me or you or anybody watching. They're their own being. And I'm sure we all have natural love for them. So I want to rekindle that. I want to go into that. But in order to, allow ourselves to have space to rekindle that love, we need to see in which ways the popular culture is distorting this natural love, in which ways it's objectifying animals and sexualizing their bodies. So this one, I want to just show a couple of slides, as I think this is really at the core of everything. And once you come to see this, so this is the way we're being manipulated, and this is the way our image of animals and meat is created, then I think a lot of the people in the chat are going to find a different tone as well. So I will share the screen.
I'll say I used to really enjoy fishing, here on the river, not even that long ago. And I actually stopped fishing for sport because I felt like I was torturing those poor fish by the hooking them and gutting them. And sometimes they wouldn't make it. And I'm like, what? So I can just play and, as a sport. And I actually quit. And I will fish for food every now and then for my family. And I do everything in my power to barbless hooks and catch, and, if I grab them by the tail, etc. But I actually stopped fishing for sport 2 years ago because of this, because I realized, what am I doing here? Why am I torturing these fish?
Yeah, it's amazing when you start connecting on a deeper level to different beings and different classes of animals. Fish is one of those that we tend to always place on the lower classes of intelligence. I had one experience which blew me away. Maybe I just put this away for a bit. It's okay. I was in a park, this is a couple of years ago, and there was a park with koi fish. They're the ones that are always in people's tattoos, these really gorgeous Japanese fish. And I was putting my finger in the water to see if it will try and catch it. Mm-hmm. And every time it would come, and I'd pull my finger away. I did it a couple of times, and this fish swam towards me and he splashed his tail and just got me soaking wet. And he's like, stop messing around with me. I realized, wow, they're intelligent.
Look at dolphins. Look at dolphins. Look at whales. I just saw a video of someone up in Alaska playing football with was it a beluga whale? And there was such an interplay of fun and frivolity, and it brought almost a tear to my eye, and how cool it was. So. Yeah, and I can't wait to hear your mouse story. I hope you talk about the mouse today.
Oh, yeah, okay. I can tell Pedrito's story.
I can't stand vermin, like here on the farm on our property with rats, and we actually have a terrier who, kills rats for us because I see them as vermin. But then also I know people that have pet rats. So this is going back to, again, such the different vibration or the rhythm of how we relate to these things. It can be so different, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I just want to shed light on this concept of carnism more through these images that we all see in the popular culture, memes, advertising. And here, I chose these two because actually this is something that vegans come across a lot, is the bacon argument. But bacon. So, okay, let's start there. I chose this is actually a product, some sort of, my dog is here. You want to say hello? He felt the need to come and say hello. This is Waiki. He's a rescue. Want to say hi? Oh, so this is actually like sliced up bacon, and it's called Puzzle Peppa Pig. And the fact that we have products like this just shows me of something of our moral standards, that as if it was some sort of a joke. This is a hacked up body of another being, and it's drawn into a silly cartoon, and then, it's a puzzle. Can you put it back together? And bacon is love you can eat. So this is one of the questions that I would like to pose to everyone who's tuning in today. Is the suffering of another justified by the pleasure it gives you? And this is a theme that you often come across in advertising, is the pleasure aspect. So here's where you know that it's actually not about surviving. It's not about, I have to provide for my family and there's nothing else available, but I actually just enjoy the taste of these products. And I chose this. Again, this is a bacon company's ad. I can't keep my hands off you. And by the way, you guys are free to comment as well what these arouse in you. But as an example of the perverted, vile, distorted way that the body of an animal has been turned into some sort of object of sexual desire with this black glove. There's just so much wrong there in this image to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things too we're dealing with is modernism, is the commodification of everything. Yeah. So the market principles behind this, versus sort of a indigenous culture that were celebrating the swine for their food, is a completely different, relationship than now. And that's really what this is about too, is this is about humanity being turned into this sort of mechanized systemic approach from the 20th century that's carried on into this century, where it led to World War I and II and all these things. Charles Eisenstein is brilliant at talking about this, where we've literally, because of the machine and what the machine's supposedly done for us, we've literally become cogs in the wheel of that machine. And so we've mechanized ourselves and commoditize every aspect of our life, including obviously our food, which is something everybody relates to. So we're seeing that now, of course, in like the barbecue competitions, right? And the Food Network, right? Which I used to be a huge fan back in the day, watching Food Network for the cooking shows and things like that. The culinary arts, all of that is obviously commodified in ways where our consciousness gets kind of swept away into the allure of it. And I think it's very important for us to step back and have these kind of discussions where we go, oh my God, yeah, that is horrendous. Wow.
Yeah. It's go ahead.
It also speaks to, it's always appealing to our emotional body. And I think the proof that, it's more of an emotional attachment than anything is, I haven't eaten meat in decades, and I have no taste for it, no desire for it. But if I'm out somewhere and I smell a barbecue, it actually smells good. And of course, the olfactory sense is most closely related to our emotional body than any of the five senses. So it just, to me, illustrates how deep those emotional connections go.
Totally. And also just going back to what you were saying, Mike, about that we are some sort of a product now these days. Like we've been made into almost like a new class of a being, which is the consumer. And also I see that our minds have been very much hijacked, and the thoughts that we carry and the choices we make oftentimes are not coming from a free will decision, but it's actually a program that has been installed into us. And this is how I see that Carnism works, that if we had the free will choice as a child to either eat animals or not, I don't think any of us would eat animals. My husband, actually, he's Persian. And when he was 6 years old, he witnessed the slaughter of a lamb in Iran, and he went into full-blown terror mode. He was screaming and crying and kicking, and his parents had to take him out of the space because it was just utter gore, the horror of killing a baby animal. And he still remembers it to this day. But that evening, he was fed the lamb without his knowledge. So he didn't understand that he's now eating the very same creature that he had to, watch and be traumatized by. So I don't think any of us has chosen to eat this way. I think it's just been programmed into us.
It makes me think of the Silence of the Lambs. Maybe that film was a sort of, declaration about Carnism, because then you have Hannibal, you have the famous line about, I can hear the cry of the lambs. And then of course, Hannibal Lecter is literally eating humans. Yeah. I mean, there's some interesting correlations going on there.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, the advertising industry is connecting the flesh a lot to, other flesh desires, so sexual desires. This is a advert by Arby's. It says, "We're about to reveal something you'll really drool over." And we can all see what is the symbol here.
Incredible.
And there's bacon in that burger, and cheese, of course, as well. And this is Burger King advert. It'll blow your mind away. Burger King Super 7-inch. And
wow.
You can, again, very clearly see what this is implying here. So how much of this kind of imagery is there in our subconscious mind? Because, everything we've ever seen is actually stored there. So how much of these programs are active there when we make those choices in grocery shops?
And obviously there's a relationship to sex here. And it's interesting that the word carnal, right? Your carnal desires, and then sort of what we're talking about with eating meat, carnivore, that's all related. And really, isn't that interesting how they tie that in together? And reading this book by Harold Walden Percival, Thinking in Destiny, which I've talked about a lot recently because it's been a very impactful book on me. He specifically says animals are actually formed from all of our carnal desires from our life, from literally our sexual emotions. And they're actually created once we pass in the realm when we're going through our life review and into hell and into heaven. Those emotions are released, those sexual desires are released, go into the form plane, and then actually create the physical embodiment of the animal. And the dark magicians, this is occulted esoteric knowledge. The dark magicians behind this kind of stuff, I think deep down understand this, and they play this against us to keep us in this cycle of death and destruction.
We are definitely being manipulated to act out of species-specific behavior. We're not carnivorous. If you look at our organs, our teeth, the molars, the digestive system, it's so clear to see that we are frugivorous beings by design. Like, that's our anatomy. But we are totally acting out of alignment with our natural biology. And why is that? That's my question. Again, not to judge anyone, just to say, have you been manipulated? Are you under a spell? A lot of this imagery in our pop culture is inferring that animals actually want to be eating. And this is pretty gross. I'll be showing several of these images. There's a couple of blogs that have dedicated themselves to just this kind of imagery. I think one is called Suicide Foods, and the other one is called Animals Who Want to Be Eaten. And it's a collection of just countless images like this. And I ask you, next time when you're in town, just look around the images of restaurants, restaurant menus, restaurant logos. Just look around in the city and you'll start to see this kind of imagery. And it's so disturbing. Like here, you see the lobster, he's like on the grill. And it's so bizarre. The
looking in the mirror. Isn't that
like
interesting?
He's concerned of how he looks, how hot he looks, right? Because he's getting red hot. And so he's spicing it up. He wants to be more hot.
And what they're doing is they're conflating the animal kingdom with the fact that animals eat each other, because once again, it's the animal kingdom. It's it's nature running its program, right? The program that is the after effect of what I believe the human consciousness creates. And so once again, they are just they're essentially taking that out of context and somehow applying that to this commercial standard of that it's okay, these animals want to be eaten by us. And these slides are insane here. Yeah.
This is McCormick. Make it more tasty. It's the Póngale lo saboroso. Tu comida se va a poner más buena. It's going to make your food better. And it's this, again, bizarre sexualization, and like this chicken is supposed to be, I guess, some sort of masculine ideation, the sexy man's body. And then the fish is supposed to display some sort of like feminine curves, and with the eyelashes and that kind of like flirty kiss. So it's just so disturbing when you think that this is the kind of imagery that is used to get us to buy these foods and to lust over them. This is another example where you see the cow is actually like happy to see his body being chopped into slices. And this one may be even like one of the most disturbing ones I've ever come across of salami.
Well, and we see that this extension of the disturbing nature of where this leads to us when we've got Anna Bronovich or whatever her name is, and all these like Hollywood celebrities going to these creepy parties where they literally have humans that are on the table and stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. How far is it from this? You know, I know it's an extremely uncomfortable idea to think that this is close to cannibalism, but the animal of the pig in this question, something that I've come to learn through my initiations and through my spiritual path, is that the pig, the commercial pig, this pink-skinned pig, is not a natural creature. It's not actually a divine creation, that it's a genetic modification. It's something that is a resemblance from the past, when what they're doing now, you know, tinkering with our DNA, was happening then. And the pig is basically a leftover of this, a combination of a human being and a wild boar.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I've had thoughts about that myself, and the fact that, of course, porcine derivatives are used in certain levels of medicine and even natural medicine, because they most resemble, you know, or more akin to human DNA. So yeah. I think there's, you know, I've pondered this a lot. There's something going on there. These are not natural creatures. And, you know, I spent a lot of my childhood on a farm and everything. I just always had kind of a disdain for these kinds of pigs. And definitely much different than the wild boars, you know,
yes.
Like in Hawaii, we had a lot of wild boars just roaming the hills and everything. So, yeah, I think
crazy.
There's a lot of truth to what you're saying there. It is.
Because the pig's heart.
The fact that it's become a major foodstuff, I think there's, you know, there's quite a sinister story there as far as why it's marketed, you know, for human consumption in the first place. And also goes back to the fact that we're learning that there's a lot of fetal cells in human you know, derivatives in a lot of the food that's marketed to us as well, not just pork. And there's a reason for that. There's a heavy price to pay karmically when we consume our own kind. So yeah, none of this is by accident.
No. And, you know, the pig's heart is the only animal's heart that can actually be transplanted into a human body, and it works.
Right.
And its intestines are indistinguishable from a human intestines. And of course, you know, the medical school students used to practice surgeries on pigs. And then when you look at their eyes, they have the white around the iris, just like humans, and they're extremely intelligent. They're one of the most intelligent mammals on Earth, right there with chimpanzees and with dolphins. They can be compared to a 4-year-old kid. So what is this, and why is it pork that is in absolutely everything? Why is it pig that's on the Christmas table? You know, why do they put this gelatin in the children's Haribos? Are we spiritually corrupted from the age of like 2 years old by eating the spinal strips from the whatever sinews and tissues that are on the slaughterhouse floor where they make this gelatin from? Like, is that the way that we are hooked into this lowered density, into this violence frequency that we are from child eating this? I don't know. It's just, to me, it's so gross. And all religions recommend against it. They all say you should not eat pork because it's a dirty animal. And now I'm starting to understand, it's not like it's dirty because it's rolling around in the mud. It's dirty because it's not divine creation. It's a distortion of the animal kingdom. So this is a perfect time to talk about it because we're leading up to Christmas right now. Here's another very bizarre image. This is the Frascello alcohol drink, and meat and alcohol are always advertised together. This is another very interesting thing, again, spiritually, when you think about it. And it says, Frascello, get married to everything.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. Meats with spirits, right? I mean, there's some more black magic there.
Yeah. And this is like the bride, the pig is the bride. or the bride. And it's like, oh, when you're drunk, you will want to like unite with everything. You want to consume everything. You want to get married with everything. It's just so bizarre.
It's satanic, really.
Absolutely. And then look at this image. This is for a béarnaise sauce, delicious on fish. And here's this woman with half her body that have been devoured, a mermaid, that seems to have enjoyed that. So something that as a woman, when the more I look at this phenomena, the more I realize that this is the absolute most hideous violation of the woman's body, the whole animal industry. Not just these images, but of actually what happens in the industry. Because every animal in the industry, they first have to be raped to reproduce. And it's the female animals whose secretions are, taken out, and they're exploited, and their babies are taken away. And so it's such a systematic violation of the woman's body when you start thinking about the animal industry. And then when you see the way they advertise it and the way they sexualize animals, it's just the most disgusting thing. So I just want to ask, like, is this really what we think? Is this normal in our culture? Why have we accepted this? This is a martini advert. These are all 3 different images of this advertising campaign. And it says, makes food that easy.
That is
so somehow bizarre. When you're under the influence of this alcohol, you can pair it so nicely with lamb or with beef or with pork. So you have these flirty female animals that are looking decadent. And
yeah, once again, the sexualization, the sex principle driving everything here, because they understand. Yeah, they get it.
They get it. Another one, again, hot Indian chicken. This is decapitated chickens having sex.
Kama Sutra, a whole new vibe there.
And this one, turkey hooker, an easy pickup from pan to platter. And it's in the actual tool that you use to hook the dead flesh of the turkey. And then there's an image of like a flirty prostitute turkey there. This is a seasoning advert. The temptation of taste.
It's interesting when you start to really look at this, how the ad is actually doing the opposite to me than it's supposed to, when you really are conscious about it.
Yeah.
So Henna, I'm kind of out of touch with all this, because I'm in my own little bubble for many, many years. I don't watch TV. I don't look at media, and I feel like I'm on this fantastical National Geographic voyage here. Is this most of this from the European and other parts of the world, or is some of this from North America as well? Because this is like outstandingly remarkable to me. I just can't believe some of the stuff I'm seeing.
Yeah. This is all North America, Europe, mainly. We can link those 2 blogs also in the show notes so people can go and find. There's weeks worth of this kind of imagery. I tell you, like yesterday when I was preparing for the show and I was going through that stuff, I remember I first came across it in 2012. And that's when I knew that I'll never eat animals again, because I felt so like betrayed. I felt that this freaking worm of a belief system has been living in my mind. This is the kind of thing that is there, that I objectify animals as some sort of thing I can eat. So that was it for me. When I saw this holy wrath was born in me, and I was like, I will never freaking do this again. But yeah, so when I was preparing for this and looking at these, it was like a part of my soul was just like crumbling in agony, just thinking that this is so demonic. This is our culture.
And let's keep in mind too, this cult, this isn't my culture, but yeah, I know what you mean.
No, mine neither.
The demonic sort of twisting of nature happens on all elements of everything they do. So, yeah, obviously, the commercialization of eating animals is foul, like no pun intended. But
So,
you know,
Henna,
yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep moving down these slides. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask Henna if she's investigated into some of the fake meat products, and then especially these celebrity meats where they say that they've got DNA from certain celebrities, and Franco sausage and stuff like that. I mean, talk about in your face, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think that is why, look, people who say, why don't we go into that next? I have a lot to say about that topic. There's just 2 more slides and then we can move into that. I think that's a really, really fruitful conversation to have, talk about the mock meats and the whole so-called vegan agenda that is happening. But yeah, the last element of, so there's the objectification of animals, the sexualization of their flesh, and this like carnal desire to possess another through eating them. That's kind of the imagery that we were looking at before. But this is the elitism that is also linked to eating animals. And here it says goose leg confit with parsley, le cornichon, I'm not sure how to pronounce that exactly. Viva la cuisine française. So long live French cuisine. And of course, this is a reference to foie gras as well, which is like, without a shadow of doubt, the most cruel practice in the animal industry, because they actually hook the goose to a tube and they keep feeding it until its liver explodes. And there's no anesthetic, there's no anesthetics, there's no painkillers. It literally, while it's alive, it suffocates to death from being force-fed 24/7 until the liver explodes. And that exploded liver is the foie gras. And so there are people, entire nations.
They made that illegal in California years ago.
Yeah, oh, not here. No, it's everywhere still. And there's people who take pride that their entire identity is intertwined with this kind of beliefs that, oh, I am somehow more special because I get to eat this product. So this is the elitism that comes along with it. And this is the same series, the squid, so again, viva la cuisine française. So these are the conquistadors, the people who conquered the world. These are, I don't know, these army captains and then artists. This is the striped chicken with the red wine, the French art. So how much of these subconscious and unconscious connotations we have and associations in our minds that make us choose to buy certain products? Is it like a status symbol for some of us that, oh, when I buy this, it means I am like the French, or I am somehow more sophisticated or more evolved or more rich, or what are the reasons we buy the products that we do buy, in terms of food and in terms of everything, of course.
And the chicken's got a gut, of course. It's like it's the standard male physical form these days. Yeah. Like the luxury gut. So that was it. That was my slideshow. Let me see, stop share. And the question now that you mentioned, Bar, about them. And real quick, yes, Hulda in chat, she's wondering, did you put out a warning that there would be triggering today? Yes, I opened up the whole thing that people are I literally talked about somatics and how people might be triggered to hit pause or whatever. So yes, continue, Henna.
Yeah. Yeah. The question about the celebrity meats and that. So I think this is the primary reason why individuals like Bill Gates are driving the plant-based agenda, is to make us into cannibalists. I don't think it has absolutely anything to do with animals or not eating animals, but to get us to accept genetically modified organisms, plant-like substances, into our diet as a staple, and then eating these lab-grown meats, how can we know which kind of cell cultures they're using to generate these meats? And I have no doubt in me that these people wouldn't be sinister enough to use all these aborted human fetus cells, which we have plenty of now, now that they have even this full-term abortion coming to legality in New Zealand. And there's so much material available that why would they not use it to create these lab-grown steaks and sausages from that? So I honestly think that's the reason, not to make us weak because we don't get to have the meat, but to spiritually completely distort our species and make us into cannibalists.
So what would you say to the men folk who believe their T count is dependent on eating meat?
Talk to you. Talk to Bear. Yeah, well, where does protein come from? Just do a bit of basic research, you know? What about all the oxes and the rhinos and the elephants and the biggest, most ginormous, strongest animals on this planet or on this plane? How do they build their muscle? Well, with greens. So it's these belief systems. And if you look at the way gladiators were being trained, like I mentioned about the runners, the Incas from the ancient times, the messengers, it would be like the Elvish in Lord of the Rings. They would have their Elvish bread. They would have their quinoa or their chia seeds. And that would be enough because food wasn't the focal point of everyone's life back then. It was literally just a little side thing that you take to keep yourself pumping so that you can do all the other amazing stuff as creative beings, the ones that we, truly are. So now the food has become this object of lust and identity and culture, and it's has a way too big of a portion in our attention.
What was really helpful for me on my journey, I've had many years starting out, when I quit football, jumping into martial arts. And initially I was in, full contact fighting and still kind of in, my old body. And then one thing led to another in order to try to get better fighting skills. And that led me to more the inner arts and hooked me up with people from the old country. And then it became a whole different pursuit. And what was interesting is as the, just maintaining, muscle bulk and things became less important because, you're focused on a different aspect of yourself, you actually become more proficient at fighting. So what I was able to experience is that my physical performance was really more dependent on how, I was able to manipulate my energy from the inside out. Also learn how to conserve energy, which is important for all males because we tend to waste energy in ways, that if we knew how to use our own equipment, we'd be a lot better off. So anyway, it was a valuable experience for me because I realized that, just coming from a typical male jock mentality, which is what always drove me, that did lead me to the fact that it's not about your physicality, and your physicality is dependent on energy, which comes from your consciousness. So, learn about how your consciousness works. And before we went live today, we're just talking about all the different debates that are going on, as to what shape is our realm and and all the different things that trigger people on one side or the other. And I just mentioned it, what's most important to me is how things work. I don't care what shape the planet is. I don't care about, a lot of these debates, but if you understand how things function, then you can tap into that understanding and become a co-creator and even a responsible co-creator and be much more proficient at whatever you do. So I think a lot of these things, I've just kept a little bit of a half eye open on the chat here. And as expected, there's it's quite lively today. But I think some folks just miss the boat in that they just can't, release that whole thing of thinking that the external circumstances, whether it's the food you eat or anything, is what's doing anything in the first place.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, that it truly is about the inner world. And then everything we do in life is a reflection of that. So if we are in conflict, then we are naturally drawn to the energy of violence, and we will eat the product of that. And I can say for myself, when I came to realize the obscene violence that I was funding by buying animal products, and stopped doing that because I didn't want to enable that in our culture anymore. That was the first actual act of self-love towards myself as well. Something started unraveling in my heart, and some sort of blockages started opening in me and in my own trauma healing. And then through there, it was almost like going into another dimension where it wasn't anymore about me first, which is, of course, a very common trauma response, because when we're in a state of lack, then we're in this urgent need of having things for us to fill that void, right? So a lot of our life choices are coming from that place of need for us to have things. But then when you start paying attention to the other life forms and the other beings and other people in your life, the heart begins to expand. And I began to experience the pain, not just of me, but of everyone, the animals, humans, children, the plants, and began to realize that, wow, I actually have a choice whether I do something about this or not. Do I just, like that quote from the beginning, that do I just silently watch the world burn? Or do I use the voice that has been given to me by the Creator to speak for the voiceless, speak for the ones who cannot speak for themselves? And I see the animals, this is what we need to do. They don't have a voice, although they are screaming behind the cold steel walls and the pools of blood on these cement holes. They are being tortured, they are being raped, they are being decapitated, and pigs are gassed first before they're killed. There's gas chambers in every country where they're killing these pigs by the millions. So how much of this energy is affecting us humans? Even if you just don't want to do it for yourself, well, what about our children? What about the future of humanity? Is this the kind of engine that we want to have running? This constant generator of terror and just utter horror?
Yeah. The law of cause and effect is going to always lead to wars, us killing each other. We kill the animals in this way, we mechanistically will be killing each other too. And we've seen it for thousands of years, right? People ask, like Matt Belair, love him to death. He's been asking for years, why do we have war? Why can't we have peace in this world? Well, maybe we need to look towards what we're doing in our own backyards. Yeah. And, two core principles of sort of voluntarism is do no harm, right? This idea of non-aggression principle. And then, of course, the principle of private property. So every time that we kill an animal, we're defying those two principles by one doing harm and also taking their property.
Yeah. Well, also our medical practices are all based on self-sacrifice and making war on our own bodies. Rather than understanding the mechanisms that got us there in the first place, we try to remove parts of ourselves. We take drugs that suppress things. We take drugs that kill our microbiome inside, all of our elementals that make life possible. And how can we possibly come to a place of world peace if we make war on our own bodies? Henna, I have one dilemma with the whole vegetarian thing, and that is, what do we do with our carnivorous pets? My beloved dog, who I had for many, many years, made the journey recently, and it was heartbreaking. And, I fed him her meat. So do you think that it's possible to transition dogs, most notably, into a vegan diet and have them thrive?
Yeah, both of our rescue dogs are actually plant-based. And what I mean by that is we only feed them plants, but when they want to, they will source their own animal protein. So both of our dogs, they look for bones. Actually, we live here in the mountains, so we're in an environment where the dogs are able to have a natural life as much as possible. So they're free, there's no fences. And so they actually find bones from the mountain and they eat them. And also sometimes they catch a lizard or a gecko or a locust or a cricket, and they eat that. But the basic staple foods that they eat is organic, beautiful lentils, sweet potatoes, peanut butter. Dogs love peanut butter. It's really good for them because it's acidic. You can't have them on fully alkaline diet because the way their biology works, there needs to be a bit of acidity as well. And vinegar and some brewer's yeast for the minerals. My husband makes the best dog food in the world. Well, it's human food. We could eat it as well. It's no difference. But yeah, so we transitioned them as soon as we adopted them, and they thrive. They're never, ever ill. Their fur is absolutely gorgeous. Their breath doesn't stink, which is amazing because most dogs' breath stink. Theirs don't. Their teeth are white and shiny. So yeah, dogs are opportunistic. So they've evolved alongside humans, and their microbiome has actually developed alongside ours. So they can thrive on a plant-based diet.
Yeah, I
But
think
cats is another topic.
I think it's important to make a distinction between wild animals and domesticated animals. So like a wolf is totally different than a dog, because dogs have for thousands of years been connected to our thoughts and they have a direct relationship to how we evolved. So I think that's an important distinction for us to understand. But yes, cats definitely are different. Yeah,
cats are different. Yeah, so I don't know if this is the reason why we don't have cats, because I haven't been able to solve that in my mind. How would I do that?
I think felines, once again, they're relating to the carnal desires of our emotions, and that's why they are created on this planet. And so they meet because they are a reflection of those deep desires and emotions we've had for thousands of years.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought. I've never come across that before. I'm not sure if I fully resonate with that is all they are. But definitely they are reflections of us. There's aspects of them in us, right? So perhaps the cat would also behave differently if it was surrounded by humans in a different frequency. I'm not sure. Because there's that one video that I included in my presentation as well of a leopard that actually saved a baby baboon because it killed its mother and then found this newborn baby. And suddenly these maternal instincts were awakened in her, and she actually couldn't kill the newborn baby, and she started looking after it, and the little baboon bonded with her, and they started like following each other. So things like that do happen where animals behave out of their normal instinctual kind of species specific behavior. And so what if we humans return to our original design and essence and embody love on this earth and respect the freedom of all beings? What would happen to the animal kingdom?
I think there's no denial that anyone has had cats, and I've been a huge cat lover. They used to call me the cat whisperer in high school because I would always bring in like stray cats. That they are a pretty amazing animal in relationship to us because they're so individualized. They're so independent. They don't give a damn what you say, right? Compared to a dog. They're very unique in that respect. So that would make sense that they are a higher sort of impression of what our consciousness is on this realm. And also there's a lot of like traditional mystical relationships to cats, right? Like in terms of the mythical cat and all that throughout thousands of years in different cultures. So yeah, it's really fun to think about this. And I'm glad we're having fun with this today, right? Because it can get really dense and sort of, sad. Could you relate the story about the mouse when you was that in South America? Because I love this story.
Oh, yeah. Pedrito.
Yes.
Oh, man. Absolutely amazing story. So I was studying the medicine of San Pedro, which is this cactus. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. It's a visionary, entheogenic cacti. And I was currently under the influence of this cactus, and what it does is it tunes your consciousness to a frequency where you're able to actually see the life of other life forms, like visually. You're able to see the way trees are communicating. You're able to read animals in completely different ways. So all your senses are heightened, and you're just totally in oneness with the rainforest. So I was walking around there, And this one sunny afternoon after I'd taken San Pedro, and then I see this little mouse, it was the size of my three knuckles, this tiny little creature lying on its back and not breathing, just completely still. And of course, I'm straight away captivated by this little being. And I was like, oh my God, is it okay? Is it alive? Is it dead? And I pick him up and he doesn't move, doesn't flinch, nothing. And I can see that there's a little heartbeat, just tiny little heartbeat, but he's not breathing. There's no air coming out of his mouth. And so I put a little drop of water on his lips, and it just stayed there as a little bubble. Like it wasn't going in or out. I was like, okay, he's in a coma, basically. Like he must have fallen from a tree and lost consciousness, and there he is. And the story of actually how he came to, I have to share this too, because it just related to our capacity as a being, as a human being. So I was thinking, how can I possibly wake him up? Because he wasn't responding to anything. And then I remembered the story of my husband when he was in a music studio, and there was a producer who accidentally stepped on a lizard. And this lizard was all like, you know, looked like it was, the body parts were like all over the place and like out of shape and stuff. And the producer had just picked up this lizard and put his hand on it and then said this Tibetan medicine prayer. And next thing you know, the lizard is in fully perfect form and it just runs off his hand. So I remember this story while I have little Pedro. I called him Pedro because I was on San Pedro. I have Pedro in my hand and I'm like, okay, I wonder if Richie, my husband, you know, I wonder if he remembers that medicine prayer. So I go to his hut. He's currently communing with the medicine of tobacco, the sacred tobacco plant. And I said, Richie, I know I'm not supposed to come here because we were in isolation, but I have this little creature and he's like in a coma. Do you remember that Buddhist medicine or the Tibetan medicine prayer that you told me about all those years ago? And he's like, yeah, I do. And he only ever heard it one time. And this is the crazy thing. He took the mouse, put his hand over it. He said it. It's like 5 words. And the mouse woke up. It was incredible. It just like, and so there's little Pedro come to life in a mysterious way. And then we were feeding him a couple of days, you know, giving him peanuts and stuff and thinking, all right, well, he's now ready to go back into the wilderness. I put him on the earth. As soon as I put him on the earth, he just climbed right back up. He's like, no, I'm not staying there. Okay,
so
well, maybe
he had actually befriended you. Like he was not biting you or anything. He was happy to be in your hand.
He was happy. He was totally just like cuddly, you know, I guess bonding, you know, thinking that I'm the mother. And so, okay, we kept him a little bit longer, fed him for a couple more days. And maybe after about a week, I'm thinking, yeah, he is, you know, being of the wilderness. So I should not keep him. And I put him in a hole in a tree because I figured he's, you know, probably a tree climbing little critter. I put him in a hole in a tree, said my, you know, blessings, goodbye, went back into my hut. And then later on that evening, the guy who we were living with in the hut, he's like, Henna, your friend's out here. And then his dog, Gaia, was trying to catch this little mouse that was circling around our front porch, the door. So, okay, I take him back in and I realized he's just too young, you know, he's not ready to make it in the wilderness. So he stayed with us for 2 months in the jungle. And I never knew how intelligent these little beings are. It was just extraordinary. He knew his name. You know, if I called Pedrito, he would just run across the space and like climb on you. He would do these tricks. Like if I was on the hammock, he would go on my feet and then he would do a backflip, like literally a backflip. And then I'd be like, oh, bravo, Pedrito. And he'd do it again and again. And I never trained him. This was his own behavior. This is his, you know, intentional behavior. And if you pet him on his little belly, he would return the favor by like giving you a little lick on your lips or on your earlobe. Like he would hold your earlobe and like lick your ear. And he was incredible. He was even in a ceremony with me one time. He was just sat in my pocket all night in silence, just listening to the shaman singing. It's just,
that's great.
Yeah, it was incredible. And then finally he left by himself. You know, when he was ready to go into the wilderness, he took himself out because he would visit the jungle through the palm leaf ceiling. He would go in and out. And then one night he left and he never came back.
Wow. I love
That's
that
amazing.
Story.
Henna, if you wouldn't mind us just digressing just here before we finalize here. I know it's on the mind of some of our folks. It goes back into the dietary level, but
Yeah.
people are always wanting to bring up the work of Weston Price. I believe Weston Price, is kind of a myopic view and more of a contrast between what happens when we're taken off of real food, versus, more synthetic factory food. And that's really the thing that's valuable in pointing out. Weston Price also ignores many other cultures that, have greater longevity, health, and greater spiritual attainment, we'll say, when they don't eat meat and things. So what are your thoughts on the folks that say, what about Weston Price?
Well, there's so many teachers like him. And honestly, I don't concern myself too much with these things. I go back into human biology and what grows off the earth, and knowing the way that our anatomy has been created. And that's that. I keep it very simple, Yeah, there's merit to when you're healing your body. Let's say you have, different malnutrition, or you have some sort of autoimmune conditions because of vaccines or whatever. There may be states in your life where you need certain animal products for medicine. And I don't deny that, because I know individuals who first had to go on certain animal products like ghee, for instance, or honey or meat. And then when they gained balance and homeostasis in their being, they were able to then, transition out of that. So by all means, if you are struggling on a plant-based diet and it feels like your body is not ready to take that kind of fuel, which is very different frequency-wise and, energy-wise, then listen to what your body needs and go with that. But ask yourself, what is the underlying cause of this? Is it that there's emotional trauma? And because of the trauma, I'm constantly leaking life force. And that because of that, I need denser energy, and I need to eat animal flesh because I'm taking in their vital life force, their prana, to make up for my own. So maybe the first place I would start then is to look at your traumas, look at the woundings, make sure that you're not leaking energy, that you're here, that all your biofield is intact. And there's many ways you can do healing, of course. One way is with sacred plant medicines. Other ways is like with Eileen is teaching about the tuning your biofield through meditation, prana, breath work, prayer. Just loving your fellow human and your animals. Love is a beautiful medicine. So, go gradually, take step by step. But I don't follow any, I don't have a guru when it comes to nutrition. I just think of the creator. Okay, well, I'm supposed to be a frugivorous being. So I try and go as close to that original diet that has been created for this kind of anatomy. And that is just lots of fresh fruit and high carb. My diet is high carb and high water and organic and as local as possible. And I thrive on that. But hey, we have different blood types. We have different, Ayurvedic doshas. Some need different kinds of energy. So it's all individual. But I do believe that all of those different, systemic differences and blood types and things can be addressed through the array of the plants. I do believe that, because there's just, imagine the species of plants we have on Earth. There's just infinite amount of different kinds of configurations of nutrients and, minerals and water. So yeah, find out what is your energy, what is your make, what is the dosha, are you high fire or earth or wind, and then start maybe from there. What balances your energy, and start with your trauma healing, and then start working through your dietary choices in terms of whether there's animal products or not. But it should be a free will choice. It should not come out of someone convincing you. It should come out of a natural love for yourself and for the animals. And then through there, it's like a liberating experience. It's not that you've been guilted into it. I think that's the real path of wellness. Yeah.
Well said. Extremely well said. And my final comments in this discussion is something I learned as a child from my grandfather, which is what comes out of your mouth is much more important than what you put into it.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's what Yeshua also said. There's a quote in the Bible, something like that. Yeah.
Words of wisdom, and the logos is the word. It all comes down
Yes.
to the word. And I think, once again, guys, if we can sort of always try to step back and get away from the gross materialism and start to really look at the real science of the nature of the realm and how everything's is mental and electrical and related to how we think, we can really change things quite rapidly. We really can. That's what's so beautiful about when you understand the true science and physics. It's like things can turn around in your life like that. Yeah. So, hey, Henna, this has been such a phenomenal talk. I think it's so important, and you've done such a great job as always. And you know what? You're a great representation of living your truth, because look at you, you're vibrant and healthy and full of spark. So
it helps that I'm next to a fireplace. So I'm literally roasting here.
So where can people find you? I will get all these links in the show notes below. Please send them to me on Telegram after. I want to get those blog posts on there and anything else. But where can people find you and follow you? You didn't really mention too much. I don't know if you, but you're the whole. You were doing a really cool campaign, and we shared it, and we were involved. Bear was involved with bringing food back to the local sustainable.
Yeah, save our food.
Save our food.
Absolutely. Oh man, there's so much to talk about that as well. But it's a campaign to counter the fear around food scarcity and to really champion regenerative farming as a way to also heal the earth and help empower people to transform their lawns into food forests. So we're, of course, collaborating with Jim Gale and the Food Forest Abundance and a bunch of people. So yeah, that's an initiative that I'm working on, saveourfood.net. You can check it out. I have a bunch of different campaigns and organizations that I'm working with and that I'm running. So you can find all that on my website, hennamaria.community. You have all the links there. And then you can find my Telegram channel. I think it's Henna Maria 22, where I post my things. But I do have to say, I have stepped back a lot from social media, because on 1st of January this year, I left Facebook and Instagram because I want to practice what I preach. And I was realizing that it really was consuming way too much of my life force. And I was getting too identified with number of followers, number of comments, number of likes. And I just quickly wanted to just sever that and don't want to make myself into some sort of a it thing or an influencer of any kind. I'm interested in just collaborating with people. And if you want to collaborate with me, get in touch. I love to help people get connected and help lift people up as well. So I'm not out to be followed, but out to inspire and collaborate. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I got off Instagram 3 years ago, and I foolishly got back on to promote music and sky, and I definitely have seen how it sucks you in real quick. There is,
it's crazy.
Yeah, we need to get you on Cordal. Cordal has a very vibrant community. It's not about likes and follows. It's just about independence and being off the system. And actually, if you know what's going on in China right now, with them basically rising up and using Apple cutting off their ability to connect with their AirDrop, there are actually a lot of people in China are using Cordal because it's impossible to stop it. So there are obviously with technology, just like we were talking about before, it's not black and white, and it's how you choose to use it according to your own moral demeanor. And anyways, I think you would really enjoy the community on there. And I'm very excited about where people are going in terms of their relationship to technology and getting off the fake books and the Insta crimes, because those are really meant to channel you into the sort of what we were looking at earlier, those carnal desires of the sexy chicken. It's like that is what they're doing on all levels. Right.
Absolutely.
And playing with our emotions. So Thanks so much again, Henna. We love you dearly. Thanks for spending the time today. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a very lively chat. And I think overall, given the nature of the topic, was very good. I'm very impressed with our community as always. You can join us on Telegram at t.me/Alfa Vedic. Go follow, or don't follow Henna, but join her on her wonderful mission. She's doing so much out there in Europe. And next time you come across the pond, if you ever do make it back to Cali, holler at us. We'd love to host you at the farm. We've got a place for you, a nice comfortable bed and over the Smith River where we can really enjoy our time in the physical together, because that's as important as ever these days. So
I'll make it happen, I promise.
That would be phenomenal. Okay, guys.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You're awesome. And I would love to visit you and your side of the pond as well. I have a lot of relatives over there that I've been trying to get over to see. And, I have dual citizenship. So maybe sometime I'll.
Oh, wow. Yes, please. You're welcome. Yeah. It'd be an absolute honor. Thank you, everyone. And lots of love to everyone who's tuned in to the chat as well. And if you want, you can comment below the video and I'll come and respond. If you have any questions for me directly, I'll happily come into the comment section of the video and then, grind at it. So
beautiful.
I'm all for dialogue and comments. Yeah.
That's great. So on YouTube, we're also on Unite Live. This will also be on Odyssey. So YouTube seems to still be the hot spot where most of the chat is, but that eventually we'll probably get banned eventually. We'll see. So anyways, thanks so much, guys. Remember to get outside, get your feet in the dirt, go for a hike, go plant something. Mother Nature is our best guide. So go show her some love. And we'll see you next week with, I think we're going deep into biogeometry next week, Bear. So is it Doria Kareem? Am I saying her name? Yeah. Yeah. So that's going to be
Kareem's daughter and main teacher of biogeometry.
Yep. So prepare to go again, guys. We're bringing it. Okay. We'll see you later.
Ciao.